Hey, thanks everybody for joining this really special session for the Threats and Vulnerabilities Summit at CSA. We just had to talk about it, so we gathered some of the best experts to talk about this topic, and we snuck it into the agenda just so we could address what's going on with ChatGPT and what are the security implications around ChatGPT. So I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. My name is John Yo. I'm head of research at CSA. We get to do a lot of cool things, including explore AI and understand what the benefits and the challenges are. But with that, I want to go around the room to see who else is in here. So how do we start with Lars? Lars, would you like to say hello to everybody?
Yeah, thank you, John. So I'm Lars Rudigkeit. I work for Microsoft as an account technical strategist, specifically for the Swiss state of Switzerland. So I work with the state. At the second time, I'm also deep into cybersecurity because I worked in the past for a bank. And as one of my hobbies in Microsoft, I'm part of the AI speaker community. So I have normally earlier access to information about AI than many other people when it comes from Microsoft.
Perfect. Thank you, Lars. Eric, how about you next?
Sure, thank you. So my name's Eric Cohen. I'm an accounting technology futurist with my own firm. Been working on a mission for a couple of decades that a piece of business information, once it gets entered into any computer anywhere, will never need to be retyped as it moves through the audit information supply chain. So my focus is audit data, security standardization, and facilitating a world of continuous monitoring, reporting, and auditing, Audit 4.0, if you will, and the role that AI, as illustrated by ChatGPT and similar tools, can have with it.
Excellent. Thanks for being here, Eric. And a man that's familiar with the microphone, Aaron, last but not least.
Last but not least. Greetings, everyone. My name is Aaron Bragg. I'm one of the lead information security analysts at Corewell Health. We are a pretty large healthcare system in the United States. And as John pointed out, I also run a podcast, a security podcast. So I'm going to bring some real world business use cases. And then Eric and Lars are gonna beat me up for it. So
Hey, not at all. I think we're lucky to have a conversation between, the four of us today. And, maybe I'll just do a quick intro on what ChatGPT is. After all, that's, I think most people know what the buzz is. It's a generative pre-trained transformer model that launched back in November, but it's caught fire as far as what people are using it for. And it's amazing how it can generate anything from abstracts and essays to poems to code and everything in between. In fact, ChatGPT 4 was released pretty recently, and it's now multinodal. Well, now it's not just around text. We're able to integrate and respond to pictures and videos. So pretty incredible what it's able to do and how it got to this point. AI has been around for a very long time, and there's this pre-training model that's been in existence even with OpenAI for several years. We've gone to this now supervised fine-tuning and reinforcement learning model to where it exists today, which really generates what ChatGPT can do, how it converse, and how it's now this AI-driven natural language processor. I think it's incredible. I want to share how I've used it with everybody, but I want to start maybe even just going around the board. And Aaron, maybe we just start with you. How are you using ChatGPT just, in life, for work, or wherever?
yeah, no, this is a good that we'll lead with the healthcare ones, because I would like to hear Eric and Lars' input on that and maybe even sharing advice, right? So very recently in the healthcare system, I've actually had a meeting with our data scientists and data analysts at our healthcare system because they're facing a unique dilemma, right? Like they came to me and they're like, Aaron, we're getting a lot of data modeling requests, a lot new kind of reporting as we move to this event-driven architecture in healthcare. And they're like, there's just not enough time a day, right? We want to do this new modeling. We're having stuff requests that we need to do R and Python. and other things. And they're like, we're a relatively small team. They're like, we want to be able to use ChatGPT to do code for some modeling, right? So this is a totally legitimate business request because, we're generating so much data in the healthcare space that, the business, wants to use it all, but, there's only so many resources and bodies to go along with it. So it begged to a larger discussion around, okay, let's put some guardrails on it. Let's onboard this like an application, right? Because if you're using an enterprise space, there's licensing stuff. So even though stuff is free, when you're a large enterprise, it's, as Lars knows, right? Well, even Eric from PwC days, there really is no such thing as free. So, you onboard it, right? You bring it in the processes, you can get visibility to it. And that way we could work with them to say, okay, for these use cases, right, you can start to put guardrails around it. For example, like obviously no PHI when you're bringing in the data set that you want to do something with, no PHI. So they're going for this round of how they're using it. They're like, no problem. This is more to generate the code that's going to help us do the data modeling. We're not actually going to be dropping, the data inside ChatGPT. So it makes me think a little bit differently on how are we going to think about secure software development differently, to where now we're going to have to review code that's being created by, AI and ChatGPT. What kind of process did it go through? What if we want to get to, that secure software development lifecycle? So these are the kind of struggles that we're having right now, where we want to use it, we want to put guardrails around it, and we really truly got to think differently with it. So be interested in hearing my colleagues' thoughts on that.
Man, now that's like real use case, right?
That's
so
real.
you're
I
actually,
promised you real use cases.
so it's helping your software developers just. I mean, it's accelerating their code development, and they're utilizing. I've seen models that people are using up to 50% of code generated by ChatGPT. In their
Well,
deployments.
and you think about the training time, right? Because for some of the data analysts, they may know other languages, right? But they may be relatively new to Python, for example. So now think about the training time that this cuts into. If they're able to figure out the modeling that they want to do, ask it to write this, this type of code, have it spit out the code, and then be able to pull it out, ingest data with it, and then see what your reporting is. So huge.
Yeah, huge cost savings. Eric, how about you next, man? Can you relate to that? Are you utilizing ChatGPT in similar ways?
Well, I heard that some members of our group like to use a visualization tool called Mermaid. And ChatGPT taught me how to use Mermaid, and I told it in words what I wanted, and it wrote the code that I typed in and took out a picture and shared it with you guys. So this ability to write code is something that's absolutely amazing. Now, on the other hand, this is a Hewlett-Packard 200LX from the 1990s, and I have been
with a
using
full
artificial
keyboard, I
intelligence
might add,
chatbots for 30 years. I used a DOS product called ThoughtLine. I used a Windows product called WriteEZ. So this whole idea of a chatbot, of something that can help you bring your thoughts together and create documents and create outlines, I've been doing that for 30 years. ChatGPT is not new to me with that. But in terms of, as you mentioned already, people have been talking about AI for so long, and people, oh yeah, just take a library and add it to your Python or R work, and that doesn't mean anything in my world. People don't necessarily think of the audit profession as the most technically adept. I'd like to disagree with that, but ChatGPT has made this so very real and so very easy. And so I've been using it experimentally to work on the areas where it can help in accounting and audit, both in the incremental and the new risks that it presents, and how to just help facilitate a dialogue on the potential benefits and costs to remediate those risks. So yes, I've been playing it, and I'm solving philosophy problems and writing poems and songs and things, and put me out of job as a grandpa writing better things than I can, and writing new things for my kids. But what a great tool, and again, it's mostly, it makes it very real for us today and has brought it into the limelight.
Yeah, man, it's this power that's at our fingertips, right? And it's this whole, I'm just talking to so many people to see how productive we are now, like real production with artificial intelligence that's available right now for free. And Lars, I know you're a big part of that movement as well. And I'm really curious. I know you do a lot of experimenting with AI and ChatGPT, but what else do you do with it today?
To be honest, I get sometimes the feeling every product that is not by free on a tree gets ChatGPT integration. But I always really distinguish between ChatGPT, like everybody talks, because this is for me the first marketing tool. Because the underlying models, this is really just an API first architecture. And if you use something like GPT-4, you can completely integrate it in any product that can integrate APIs. And this is really the amazing power.
Right.
And the one thing that has really changed from models in the past to now, in the past, we have built models for each problem based on a sophisticated data set. Something like GPT-4 is a homogeneous model. It is fine-tuned only with a little bit of weighing of inputs parameters based on the task. So a ChatGPT interacting algorithm with Word has some other nuances in the weighing of the same model, in the deep learning parameters, versus one that will interact with Excel, or something that interacts with another application that is really made by a third-party customer, or if it is really interacting like Copilot for GitHub, really on coding development, daily work. And for me, the one thing that shocked me the most was really a statement that was really resonating with me by Andre Carpati. And he is really a former director of AI at Tesla. And he was roughly like, there is no way back from Copilot. It is like 80% correct, meaning I prompt and edit. And I think this is really the one thing that, let's call it like this, if you now go to programming, you will start to look at programming completely different than anybody who has done programming till now. And I think it is really a convergence to be the next computer interface. Because, looking at the past, we started with stamp cards, later keyboards, the computer mouse, and even over awesome touchscreens. But with combinations of technologies like speech to text and then using ChatGPT engines to translate to really computer code executable by computers, I think Star Trek and Scotty talks to his engine is the next thing. One thing where we must also be clear and not to overhype it, a model like GPT-4 is enormously big. So we are not talking about something that you will be able to run on your computer. You're talking really
you're not taking your mobile phone, right? Like
No, I mean,
you're not going to be able to talk to this in the field.
No, I mean, we are really talking about an inferencing model setup that uses hundreds of GPUs in an infinity band combination. So when it comes also to the question, can we do this in our own data center on premise? The answer is yes. If you buy something like 100 specialized GPU machines and put them together, and when you start retraining it from scratch from the web, you can still do it. But I don't believe it is to be economically feasible. And to be honest, my personal opinion, I see this becoming true because I don't even see it popping up in every Microsoft data center. I only see it currently in 3 regions, and nobody internally makes any big announcement, oh, it comes next where, and where. So currently we have a plan with more data centers for quantum computing in Microsoft than with ChatGPT engines. And this tells me a lot about the underlying investment that we are doing as a company.
Wow.
Because those monies, to Lars, to your point, that those resources cost money, right? And that's probably I'll put a Microsoft hat for a minute. That's probably the downside, right? As you grow this and you integrate it more, it's going to become this beast that needs, more resources and more planning and everything else. So that's something I didn't think about. So that's a great view. Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the point why, in my opinion, only hyperscalers can do it. Because you need first a very big chunk to start. But when it's like, if there comes the second, the third, or the 100th customer, it is only a small incremental add. So the baseline of this technology and this big models, and to be clear, we are talking on the same level on autonomous car driving. These models are really challenging on an infrastructure level. And that's why I personally also believe why we don't see self-driving cars today. Because nobody was really honest with everybody in the market that, look, we can make the models bigger and bigger, but we cannot put enough chips into the car so that he can handle the model itself. And, you know, in the setup of this that we are now doing here, if there is really a connection break, just the internet, nobody of you will have any problem if ChatGPT is not working. If your co-pilot with GitHub is out of work for an hour, yes, you will complain and you will start to say bad Microsoft. But imagine a self-driving car that was required
that loses internet
model.
connection, right?
And by the way, now I'm offline for 5 minutes. Have fun driving yourself.
Man, that's you've unpacked a lot too, Lars. I mean, you talked about the evolution of just skill sets with, hey, remember when we had to do assembly language, then it went to C, then Java, Python, and now we're just tell it to write code, and it's a natural language code writer now too. You don't even need skill sets anymore. And now we're talking about the utilization of a chat GPT or AI like, where you need massive compute power to even just generate responses. And probably why we see even the current version of chat GPT that we're using. I mean, its data set's only up to September of 2021, right? And so we actually had a live chat GPT that's actually ingesting all the zettabytes of information off the internet today and processing that into a response. Yeah, who can do that on this planet? There's maybe a couple organizations that can do
now
that.
You see why quantum computing is so important, right?
Absolutely. So how do you even secure such a platform? If we're talking about very few people are going to be able to do this in the future, our jobs, like how we secure these platforms in our organizations, becomes even more important if we're utilizing these tools, right? Eric, what do you think about the security side of things?
Well, when just given the discussion we were just having and knowing a lot of work people are doing and trying to keep the national grid up and going, I'm just wondering about the security. Is this going to be something where the government is going to have to come in and it's going to be paying for people to have their subscriptions to the ChatGPT 4 and is going to be working on keeping the grid up and going? And I mean, that's just what you guys have raised in my mind. And again, I have a very small world with my thought of the straight through audit. And so most of my focus has been on the potential exploit points, largely between the human and the IT user through the API and ChatGPT. And we've got a document that may or may not be coming out in the near future where we're going to be talking about a bunch of these things. And I've got an illustration just showing all the different things where someone can interlope and intercept the information or impose themselves man in the middle kind of attacks or grab information and break confidentiality and privacy.
Eric, it's coming out.
The great news is that ChatGPT itself is helpful in considering and compensating for these weaknesses. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I'm thinking of in that area.
Yeah, I love that. And Eric, it's coming out, and we're going to give everybody a sneak preview to at least say join the conversation with us. But I mean, this AI or even how ChatGPT is going to be productive for us. Aaron talked about how it's helping generate code. You talk about how it's going to aid in even auditing potentially, but it's also going to be aiding, our adversaries. We talked about the grids and how we need to protect things. So we're talking productive, production across the board, production in building and attacking as well, right?
Although most of that stuff on how to exploit has been out there on the internet. I mean, we all Captain Crunch and all that great stuff, and you go to the right sites and they got the software to make it happen. This is just facilitating it. It's making it so much easier to get at it and to do it in a very customized and specific way.
Eric, you just made me think differently about what I was going to ask for. So to John's question about, how can ChatGPT be used for security? I've been railing against vendors in the security space for the last couple of years because it's a buzzword. Before ChatGPT, so we have advanced learning, we have AI, like we can detect things, this type of user behavior. And a lot of that has been just, glorified machine learning, if then statements, right? I've struggled to where if we're truly going to, Lars is laughing, if we're truly going to mature this in a security space, I need it to be one level above. And what I mean to that is where I need it to be able to not just do basic alerting, right? But truly help out our SOC analysts, security operations center analysts, in filtering out what's a valid alert, right? So in my head, I was thinking about, could I put several different business workflows into this, right? With the idea is I want you to find a hole in the process, right? And then what I can do is then create alerts based on that. Eric just flipped the script on me, right? Because where I'm optimist, I'm being a little naive about it. That's why I'm not trusted with state secrets, and I'm okay with that. That the bad guys could then do the same thing, right? There's no stopping a bad guy from putting in the same business workflow that I'm going to do because I want it to look at these business processes, right? Because, this is something declassified that I can talk about. One of the attacks that we saw last year, right, was a business process failure. Right. Yes, we could, after the fact, we can put security around it, but there was no security tool in that business process workflow that would have stopped what happened. It's the whole business workflow itself that need to be evaluated, right? So now you have a situation where, as an analyst, I need to be able to understand what the business is doing so that I can look for vulnerabilities or even make alerts on. And now Eric just ruined my day because I'm going to plop this stuff in there. But yet the bad guys can do the same thing. I guess maybe, Lars, your thoughts on this. The advantage that I would have is I'm putting known stuff in, right? Like I'm going to put a business workflow in it that only I know, whereas a bad guy, they're not going to know those kind of details. Is maybe that a saving grace?
I would have as well two different kind of answers to your questions. So the first one, we should also be careful to not say ChatGPT engines are the only solution to our cyber problems. Because if it really comes to there is somebody in our systems, this is more in the field of anomaly detection, and multivariate anomaly detections are other engines than the GPT-3 models. So there, I don't see them as a helping. On the other hand, new type of exploits will also be not recognized necessarily by this engine because it must be trained on them. But this is not the big issue in our time. Our big issue is that we have a lot of systems that never correctly patched whatsoever, and finding in your current setup all the nasty things that are not patched and have vulnerabilities. This it will find. And where it even can say, please patch it with this, do this patch. And by the way, if you have a junior analyst writing a patch and there is still an error code, it can still ask ChatGPT for help. Hi, I still got this error. How must I do it further? The complete other point was Eric was bringing is the field of social engineering. And even if we have implemented a lot of guardrails now, specifically in GPT-4, to not allow certain prompts to give results, to make it very simple and clear, it will not solve all our problems as humans, because what is the difference between a phishing email and a marketing email? So you can still do prompt engineering to say, don't allow GPT-4 generating phishing emails. Yes, but if you say, please write me a marketing email for this company, this is a very legitimate case for productivity. But how does the system know that you are just the hacker who wants to have a phishing? So there are still some things where I'm just saying,
Yep.
we can think as clever about AI as we want. It is still biased by our data, and still innovative people will find solutions.
Yeah, boy, I think that's just how, manipulative, I guess you could say, humans can be when it comes to even, these chatbots. And, Lars, touching on that too, we did the exact same thing too. We asked, and this is before 4, but we, of course, asked ChatGPT to write us a phishing email, and it wouldn't do that. But then we just asked it to write a different kind of email. Hey, I'm a CEO. I need to tell my employees to, turn off from their firewall so I can send over a more secure document. And, yeah, and it was able to do that. And so that's what's interesting too. Aaron, you talked about the SOC analyst aid. You can ask ChatGPT to help you do vulnerability scanning across your networks, and it'll bring up something like Nmap. It'll even give you Nmap commands to do something. But you can also tell to give me an Nmap command to scan this port and avoid firewall detection, and it does it. The source code's right there, and the commands are right there, and I'm just like blown away how cool and how fast that was. But then the other side of me is like, oh, it's kind of scary too.
It takes script kiddies to a whole new level, doesn't it?
Yeah. So incredible power at our fingertips, but at the same time, as we talked about before, production for both sides, for those defending and those that are nefarious and attacking and trying to do, the bad actors. So from that perspective, are you more worried about these negative acts, or are you actually more positive about, hey, this is what AI is going to bring to the table for us for the next, I was going to say for the next 5 to 8 years, but now for the next maybe 5 to 10 months, right? Everything's happening so fast. Eric, what do you think?
Well, like you say, when it comes to AI, we were thinking, Mr. Data in the 24th century, or the Will of Landru in the 23rd from Star Trek. And it's not the 23rd and 24th century anymore, and it's not 15 to 18 years anymore. It's Bard and ChatGPT and Ernie today.
Yeah.
And so for me, again, ChatGPT, I love it with a passion, and its strengths and weaknesses are important, but I'm most excited that we've been talking about AI for decades, and this has forced us as technologists, as business people, as academics. They say it's the death of freshman English, to consider it a reality, to see the impact on education, publishing, consulting, and to have meaningful discussions like the one that we're having here.
Do we need to be conscious too? Because, we're talking a little bit about the good and the bad, but I think one of the goods is that we're seeing so many integrations of GPT, as Lars mentioned. And we're also seeing this AI race now where, Bard, ChatGPT, the integration into Google Workspace and Office 365 and GitHub Copilot, and Apple and Amazon have talked about things that they're working on as well. Everything seems to be moving really fast. So for us, about security, about safety, about responsibility with AI, how do you feel about that? Maybe Lars, maybe I can even start with you, because I know you're in it 100%. Is there something that we should be thinking about as we move towards massive adoption of AI today?
I think there are a lot of people that really take care about these things to not do it too fast. I know currently it looks shockingly fast. I mean, if you look at my own LinkedIn thread, you roughly have a feeling that every few days I make a new announcement of things that I just get to know in my company. But if we just really look now about simple things like GPT-4 announced very, very recently. It was trained and finished in August 2022. And there have been a lot of effort from various people, including red teams, to see how to make it safer. And you really can see benchmarks that the GPT-4 is less prone to cybersecurity engineering problems versus the GPT-3 in the beginning. But if you think, was trained ready in August 22, and we make it now available in March 23. And nobody was realizing, because everybody was talking about in November 22, oh, we released ChatGPT. Oh, by the way, it is GTP 3.5. And this tells me just like that there is a lot of thinking in the background, and really, at least on our side, a plan how to roll this out. And some people will still ask it is too fast, other people will tell it is too slow. But this is like technology. So far, we have been never able to stop it.
The genie's out of the bottle.
Right. I mean, Aaron too, and I think we have, product teams pushing too, right? So I know maybe we can be the ones that are trying to be responsible, but we don't want to look to be blockers for product development too, especially when, products help make these companies money. So that's something, right?
No, and really
sorry, go ahead.
And one of the best examples that I have really seen was really one day after the announcement of GTP4, that was Be My Eyes. This is an app that explains people with poor eyesight their surrounding. And I mean, in the end, you could think about something. You are blind, go to your fridge, take your smartphone out, make a picture, and it asks you, where are which food and how can I cook my menu? This is something that is really bringing life quality to people. On the other hand, I don't want to name it, I've seen very recently also an article about a chatbot being tested on suicide persons endangered and without their consent. And then I have to say, this chatbot has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. They are just people doing certain things that are per se nothing have to do with the technology. They are just not taking care what they are doing. So there's really a huge gap between both worlds, and it depends mostly really on us how we handle it. But
Aaron, did you have some comments on that too? Because as we knew, we were running out of time.
We run out of time.
And but have some comments, because I want everybody just to have some, really parting words. I know we've been thinking about this for a while, but as we move forward, I know each of you are going to have something really, solid advice to give everybody who's either thinking about or already using, AI services like ChatGPT. But Aaron, did you want to comment on the last thing?
Yeah, I would say the best advice that I have is partner with your business early. Right. It was really cool for those data analysts, right? As soon as they saw that this was possible, they reached out to security. They wanted, they wanted recommendations. They wanted to, pick my brain about it. That is the biggest takeaway is partner with the business early, ask them what they want to do with it, help guide them. And then you're moving from being, the traditional security no to maybe yes, but let's kind of do this. And then we can move it forward, because it's in the end, it's to, like Lars and Eric pointed out, it's going to bend on your risk appetite. So partner with your business early.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant, excellent advice for sure too. Eric.
Yeah, we need to be having these discussions. We need to be bringing people together from departments. We need to be playing with it. It is an incredible tool. Incredible tools in the hands of wrong people can do incredible damage. People aren't ready. People will be exploited. It's not new, but the potential here is just absolutely amazing. And so, again, the multimodal, can't wait to see it. But we're dealing with deep fakes and stuff out there, and now we're bringing together more things that we don't understand. So we just have to be on it,
what could go wrong,
discuss it, and work with it.
Excitement, though, for sure too. Lars, how about a final word from you too?
I think one thing that gets very often forgotten is really that keep in mind how you design your solution. Because if it is the average business user, they don't need to understand anything about AI. They are happy if it's a button and if it solves a problem. It might be completely different for a data scientist who really wants to do a fine tuning of everything to get the last bit and pieces out of it. But for a majority of developers, they are just happy to have an API. And on this part, I mean, to be clear, for me, one of the biggest problems that I currently in cybersecurity are two different ones. So one are really people bidding on ads and then having fake links, bringing them to something very dangerous. And on the other hand, I really see some amazing cybersecurity criminals combining pieces of code that look individually harmless, and together they are getting then to the full power of hacking you. So people are still smart and find ways to solve their problem. And also a hacker solves his problem to get access to your system.
This is unfair because I feel like we're not done here. Even though our time is up, I got some great things to close on too, actually. How about this? So I think what, we talked about productivity here, which I think was, makes a lot of sense. We want to partner not just with our providers, but we want to utilize technology to be productive. Hopefully it's there to aid humans and not replace humans completely anyways, right? We need to be
Or take us over.
Yeah, we need to be part of those decisions, but keep being part of the conversation. Keep being part of the community. Guess who has one? At CSA, we have a great one. I know you have a chance to talk to Lars, Eric on a regular basis if you attend those meetings, and we will make sure that there's a link so you can continue this conversation with us, because I think that's the most important thing, is to not just have 4 people talking about it, but to have 4,000, 4 million, and that's how we're going to make sure that we're safe, responsible, and implementing and using AI the right way.
100% agree. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.